All right, thank you for staying with us. Well, there you have, that report making some announcements about some arrests that were done by the Nigerian police. Now, to usher us into the first discussion, now, since the upsurge in the nefarious activities of insurgents, bandits, kidnappers, and other assorted range of antisocial fellows, the call for more arms and ammunition, including the latest military weaponry, have grabbed vintage headlines. It is generally assumed that obsolete and inappropriate weapons have been major reasons why the Boko Haram insurgency, now in its 12th year, continues to gather more steam when ordinarily the delusional insurgents would have been in disarray. To give us perspectives on this issue, we have in the studio the former spokesman of the Nigerian Army, Brigadier General Sani Kukashika Usman, retired, to talk to us. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on your program.
All right. Well, over the past few days, we've seen that the terrorists, because I wouldn't call them bandits anymore after the proclamation by the federal government, they seem to be marauding around, and it doesn't look like we have a grip on them as per tracking their movement and all of that. They move so freely from one village to another. In one day they carry out attacks and kill hundreds of people. Is it that difficult to track these criminals?
Well, if you're talking about tracking, I don't think it is difficult, but knowing the circumstances under which we found ourselves and the complexity of the security challenges, you might also say that it is difficult in the sense that they are not spirit, they are human beings just like you and I, and the approaches beyond the kinetic, I think there is need for non-kinetic means. That means there should be a holistic approach to it, involving all the stakeholders. It may surprise you to understand that despite the level of atrocities being committed by these criminals, and there are still some people that do not see it as criminality, as it is as a kind of means of livelihood, because a lot of people are benefiting from the war economy system associated with complex situations. So when you look at all those factors, then you realize that it's difficult, but at the same time it is not difficult if the will and the whole gamut of the Nigerian society is taken on board. Take for instance, we have had instances where there were divergent views for those people who are statutorily responsible for the protection of life and properties of Nigerian citizens and residents in Nigeria. People were even granting amnesty, and others were of the opinion that, look, these people are criminals and terrorists and they should be treated as such. And it is not quite long that even the Nigerian state decide to, give legal backing to what these people are, calling them terrorists as it is. Because over time, these are people that have done more than what an average criminal should do. They have killed, they have maimed, they have raped, they have displaced people. And sometimes they did despicable things that you cannot even say them. So what were we waiting for? So these are the issues that you have to look at it. And again, if you look at it over time, what brought about these issues? It borders on the issue of good governance. And so long as there is no good governance, and good governance does not mean just dividends of democracy, but rule of law, and the fact that security is a collective responsibility. Every citizen, so much as he or she has privileges to enjoy, he or she equally have some responsibilities to fellow citizens and to state itself. So when you take the aggregation of this, you realize that it is not difficult to track, but at the same time, when you look at the other side of it, it is difficult simply because we have not harnessed those resources or those means to which we could have dealt with these issues. And unless we do so, we will keep on going through the same cycle again and again.
Okay. Now, the UN released a statement earlier in the week saying Nigeria cannot win the war against Boko Haram on the battlefield, suggesting that we need more community development, efforts. Are you of that opinion as well?
Well, have Nigeria declared war anyway? And given the UN system, I'm not even surprised that they should say so. And I've just mentioned the issue of war economy, and beyond that, there is also the issue of responsibility to do harm. I mean, to do no harm. Now, in developmental studies, now for United Nations, they are more or less concerned about the humanitarian problem. And I think we should look at what are those things that brought about Boko Haram and make Boko Haram to develop to the extent to which it developed between 2009 to date. And now that we are seeing, semblance of, whittleness of, the Boko Haram is whittling gradually as compared to maybe 2014, 15, and thereabout, up to 16, thereabout. So now I wouldn't be surprised, because they are more or less concerned about humanitarian issues and all the rest. But beyond humanitarian issues, there are things that need to be done. What are those things? Take, for instance, to what extent those areas affected by Boko Haram insurgency have been, enjoying good governance. Because I know, if you take, for instance, some part of northern Borno, there is a local government that I know, unless of today, that has never seen even a feeder road. It's a local government headquarters. So if you don't have such means of transportation, so, basic things such as feeder road, not talk of third road to a local government headquarters, to what extent will you be able to bring in developmental projects to other hinterlands, associated with that local government? So these are issues that we need to address. Then we look at the educational imbalance, and then we look at the economic deprivation, because what is the recruitment system? What is the center of gravity of the Boko Haram terrorists? It revolves around ease of gathering information, recruiting, and intelligence. That means they have, sympathy of some people. And why should such people be sympathetic to people that have been committing heinous crime against humanity? So these are the issues. So they will be concerned about the statistics, hunger, and all the rest of the thing. But the reality on the ground is that we need to address the issues that brought about this Boko Haram insurgency. And remember again, there is this issue of ideology. It is very, very difficult to defeat ideology. To what extent those leaders have over time gathered followership, and how can you de-radicalize those people to understand that that ideology is a terrible ideology, is antithetical, is against human existence, against the tenets of Islam. So these are things that we have to address beyond the humanitarian. Agreed, we have humanitarian problems, but I think these are issues. But thankfully, things are getting brighter with each passing day anyway.
Okay. All right. Now, some have said that the crisis that we are dealing with is a manifestation of age-long problem. It accumulated. The issues, the humanitarian crisis that we have accumulated over time. The issues of out-of-school children, it didn't start, 2 years ago or 3 years ago. It took time, before it came to be what it is. And so this is just, an explosion that we are experiencing of all of these problems, all right? So it means that the issues of the humanitarian crisis won't just disappear in one day. The issues of poverty will not just disappear because government says, okay, we have approved so and so amount for the poor, and so we are going to share money to them, and then so poverty will just disappear. No, it's not going to happen. Issues of infrastructural development, it will take time before, they happen. But then we have killings happening every day, and we want those killings to stop. Like, they have to stop. As soon as we can get it right, they have to stop. So what do we need to do in the short term to first of all ensure that people are secured before we can even look at the issues of infrastructural development and the rest of them?
Well, to start with, I think whoever has made the assertion about the accumulation of the problem and that manifests over time, he or she is quite right, because I think we tend to neglect some aspect. Take, for instance, from 1999 to date, even before the advent of the present democratic dispensation, we know that the democracy has come to stay, and this is what Nigeria wants. So what are those things that were put in place to ensure that democracy is sustained? First and foremost, we should understand that it requires accountability, and it has bureaucracy, and people should have been galvanized to understand that decision-making process, policy-making process takes time, and it's about consultations and what have you. So people ought to be patient and more tolerant as it is. But unfortunately, we did not really, strengthen the institutions that will make an average Nigerian to have trust and faith in them. And what we have is bent of emotion and anger against the state, that manifests in various crises that we're experiencing now. This is issue number one. Therefore, and over time with democratic process, people tend not to emphasize on the welfare and security of the people. We are thinking of other things, and hence the level of unemployment we have, and the level of criminality we have, and of course the level of humanitarian crisis that we have. Coming back to what you are saying, the best thing is when you are faced with a dire situation, it requires dire, steps. Take, for instance, we shouldn't have dissipated our time wasting energy on what to do. Or rather, we should be decisive on issues of how to deal with issues. Take, for instance, way back, the average understanding of, the Boko Haram issue in Nigeria tends to differs from one section of the country or another. Take, for instance, even among the northern Nigeria, a lot of people then thought that it is a northeastern Nigerian's problem. And even among northeastern Nigeria, people tend to think that it is a particular ethnic group or a particular state's problem. It is not supposed to be so. Any problem that affects any part of the country or a Nigerian citizen has the capacity of affecting other parts of the country and other citizens. Therefore, we ought to have seen it, as one for all for one, when it comes to security issues. There should have been a holistic approach regardless of which government is in power. So that is issue number one. Issue number two is that people should be accountable, in the sense that whoever is giving any responsibility, he or she discharge that responsibility to the best of his ability using the constitutional instrument. And if there is any infraction, that person should be held responsible for it. But over time, people commit whatever they want because they know there won't be any sanction, so they go scot-free with it. And
now, let's talk about accountability. Talking about accountability, we've seen, purchase of hardware equipment, by government in the past, or rather, I would say budgetary allocations, for the purchase of, equipment, and all of that. But suddenly we realize that we do not even really have enough, to deal with, the recent realities that is facing us, in the country. So, can we really say that with the budgetary allocations that have been made in the past, with the hardwares that we have at the moment, is it commensurable?
Well, if you are looking at it from the perspective of the current realities of the Nigerian society, so many security challenges that require weaponry and equipment and more boots on the ground, we don't have enough. And we need more, even though there is nowhere at any given point in time you always get what you want at, But that notwithstanding, we still need equipment, we still need these weapons. At the same time, we need to understand that these problems, it is not just that of the armed forces or the security forces. It's a collective responsibility. And how do I mean? Now, we go back to what I said earlier on, irrespective of, the menace of informants, Take for instance, the same group of people, in fact, there are some people that are benefiting from the complex situations. There are people that provide logistics. Take for instance, depending on the location of where the Boko Haram terrorists are, because of the continuous onslaught, it is very difficult for them to get some of this logistics. Take for instance, petroleum, oil, and lubricant. A 5-liter gallon of petrol cost as much as 5,000 naira, depending on the location. And somebody will see it as a means of getting, money. No matter what the risks are, they will definitely ensure that they supply either the bandit or the terrorists, as the case may be. Now, you look at that as issue number one. Issue number two is the issue of intelligence and information gathering, particularly the human intelligence. There are some group of people that benefit. They are the same people that are trading information to the criminals with the security forces also. Unless we deal with these issues, so long as so long as they continue, you continue to have problems, because it is more or less like counterproductive. You are equipping the people, and there are some people that are betraying that equipment, in the sense that, they tell them where, and when the security forces will be, and all they have to do is to lay ambush for them. And beyond that, again, there are people that up to now, they don't see security challenges as a collective responsibility that need to be dealt with as such. So long as you are not in government, or so long as it does not affect your village or local government, well, so be it. But no, even the average, in fact, a word of encouragement matters. Talk less of maybe going out of your way to sabotage some of the activities of the Nigerian troops. So these are the issues that we need to address.
All right. Some experts have suggested, utilizing community policing and help tackle the security challenges we're facing. But in recent time, we saw the Reps Committee on Constitution Amendment kick against, community policing. Are you for or against community policing? Well,
it depends on what you mean by community policing. If it is community policing as I know it, the way it was launched in 2014 or thereabout, I think about how many years ago, I am for community policing. More so, and I will tell you why. Because I had the privilege of going to the National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies, Kuru, and in 2018, the theme of our course, SEC 40, was to interrogate the internal security framework of Nigeria, community policing, policy, options, and strategy. And we did a diligent job, in the sense that there is no part nook and cranny of Nigerian society that we have not been to, and there is no security agencies that we have not interrogated. And we went to 6 African countries and 6 other countries beyond the African continent, in which we compared the internal security architecture and mechanism of those countries vis-a-vis what is happening in Nigeria. And we found out, take for instance Ghana in particular. Ghana has a very fantastic community policing system, as well as Italy. And we brought in suggestions, or we made suggestions, recommendation and implementation strategy. And that is why in November 2018, there was move to ensure that community policing is, given the desired impetus in this country. But unfortunately, typical of the Nigerian society, people tend to misunderstand some of the issues associated. People who are thinking of, state police and all the rest. But the concept of community policing, and you look at the principalness, it is being proactive, it is community-based, and it is intelligence-driven. So if that is it, I think community policing is one of the panaceas to security challenges in this country, because everybody will be involved, and these people will be deployed within the society, and they have a clear structure, they are answerable, and they are integrated into the Nigerian security architecture. So invariably, community policing, whether we like it or not, is one of the key solutions to Nigeria's security challenges.
Now, given in terms of providing information, yes, community policing is very critical. But again, the concern about the community policing thing is that we are talking about, the insufficiency of our troops on the ground. And so of what importance is an information that will not be acted upon? So for instance, you have a community that, gives information way ahead of time, for our security agents to act on it. And then sometimes we've even heard that there will be report about a possible attack, and then there will be no response from our security forces. Sometimes the attacks happen for hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, and there's little or no response because probably the personnel are far off, the location of where that attack is going on. And, you have these ungoverned spaces everywhere and so on. So how effective will community policing be in this instance?
It is going to be effective, but what I want you to understand, I said it is one of the panaceas of, solving security challenges in the country. So it is not just the only solution. It is supposed to be in combination with other measures. Take, for instance, we tend to neglect the importance of technology, especially in tackling security challenges. There are modern equipment and all the rest, modern communication system, and that will aid, and even beyond that, even the equipment of the troops or the security forces themselves. So it is a combination of so many factors. And invariably, there is also the issue of security education. Then there is also the issue of the numbers. Take, for instance, look at what is the total number of, those involved in the security architecture of this country. I'm talking about the armed forces and other security agencies vis-a-vis the population of this country, and given the security challenges that we have. So invariably, we need to have more numbers, we need to have more equipment, we have to involve use of technology, we have to improve on the security education, and above all, good governance.
Okay. Yep. Now, talking about good governance, what role do you think corruption has to play in all of this?
Well, definitely corruption, is one of the bane of the Nigerian society. And when you talk about corruption, sometimes people tend to look at humongous amount of money or no. And I think it has to do with the issue of accountability, regardless of wherever you find yourself. It could be at higher or lower level. So corruptions, to a large extent, affect national development. How does it affect national development? You have resources meant for a particular purpose, and somebody will squander it or will not give the right amount of money or the qualitative services or quantity as it is. So to a large extent, it affects invariably almost everything that is associated with Nigerian society, and that is why we are having the problems that we are having. And unless we tackle corruption in every sector of the Nigerian society, wherever it manifests itself, then we'll continue to have a problem. Why? Because the people that are supposed to do the right thing, they will not do it, and they will go scot-free. And that will encourage other people to do. And a lot of people are being deprived of, opportunities, and so on and so forth.
All right. Now, there is this, alarm that the Nigerian police raised some time ago as to missing rifles. Hundreds of thousands of rifles were missing. And, there's just no one to give an account as to where they are. So I'm concerned. We've seen recent purchase of equipment for our military. And we've also heard stories about how, terrorists will invade the military base, take, armories belonging to our troops and all of that. How can we ensure that some of the procurements that we are making do not end up in the hands of the very people that we are fighting?
Well, the solution is simple, is to ensure accountability. And this is not just the police, actually. We tend to neglect the issue of monitoring and evaluation. Whoever is saddled with responsibility should be made to be accountable, and there should be periodic checks. And I know for the military there is this what they call annual admin inspection, You inspect the weaponry, the equipment, in fact, even living quarters. To what extent have they been doing so in the police? I don't know. And but beyond that, again, those who are responsible for, the storage of these weapons, we have to critically examine them and make sure they are rotated. Make sure that there is always, periodic checks. Take, for instance, today, how many rifles or pistols were issued, how many rounds of ammunition. Take, for instance, a particular division or a particular zone, and so on. Within the next coming 24 hours, how many have been expended? What are the reasons? And if there is any infraction, what sanctions are you making? And beyond that, again, we have to be diligent, especially during training sessions, because most of them, that is where they get missing. Because you are supposed to have a particular, practice. Take, for instance, if you are going for range classification, you are supposed to go for maybe standing, kneeling position, or whatever, lying position. Maybe they say a practice of 10 rounds of ammunition. Have time to ensure that actually you've been given 10 rounds of ammunition. And make sure that you exhausted 10 rounds of ammunition. If there is any missing magazine, you have to account for it. And I know in the military that I was, if you go out for such training exercise, but at the end of the day, nobody leaves the shooting range unless you are searched right from the commander. I mean, commander at any level. Even if it is the chief of army staff, he has to hands up. Somebody has to frisk him, and he will swear that he doesn't have a live or empty case in his possession. And they will warn you that by the time we leave this place, if any is found on you, then you will be found culpable. To what extent have we been practicing this in real practical terms? I really don't know. And I think we have to go back to those bases, not just necessarily for the military, but also of the police. But of course, now we have problems of security challenges that it is very difficult to continue with all these bureaucracies and all the rest. But nevertheless, these are control items. Arms and ammunition, they are no granite. We know the damage they could cause. Therefore, we have to be diligent in issuance and making sure that we retrieve them when it's supposed to be retrieved. These are the issues. Then again, there is the issue of proliferation of these small and light weapons within the society. How do they come into the society? And by the way, again, there is a flourishing industry of, local manufacturers of arms and ammunition that with what do you call it, shock absorber of your motorcycle now forms a cylinder of an average weapon in Nigerian society. But thank God for the center that is created, and I believe we need to support them to ensure that we mop up this thing. So honestly, some of all these problems, they don't have one-off thing. You have to, have a combination of other factors to ensure that, we succeed.
Okay. One other issue I would like to raise is that there are some experts that have said, why don't we think about maybe recalling some retirees back into the service like you? I mean, should we, be thinking in that line, given the fact that we need hands now, in the force?
Do you actually need to recall them? I think, in as far as much I'm concerned for the armed forces of Nigeria, and I know to a large extent, thank God for the social media, I think they have been contributing to the best of their ability. Possibly it is not enough, and we need to harness, and I have seen where the service chiefs and the chief of defense staff, they have gone to various geopolitical regions of the country, consulting with retired colleagues and charting the way forward. And I can tell you, for the armed forces that I know, there is still communication, between those that have retired and those in the service. They have been given the best of advice, as the case may be. So you might not necessarily, recall them in the way you want them to be recalled, to be drafted, putting them in one place and all the rest. No, they have been given their advices one way or the other, despite the fact that some of them have become entrepreneurs, doing very well in their respective areas of endeavors. But again, there is also provision for, reserve. I don't think we have reached that point, and I think we need to.
You don't think we haven't got to that?
I don't think so. We have abundant manpower within the Nigerian society that we can recruit more, we can commission more, so that people with more energy can give, their own.
Yes, but the problem
quota.
with that, the issue of experience, the issue of whether you can even guarantee that some of them are actually, joining the force, to actually to protect the country.
Yes, but you see the problem with that, we have to interrogate the training system within the Nigerian society, because, the various security agencies, for instance, the value system of the Nigerian society has changed over time, and the training period has not changed. So we need to interrogate, the recruitment system, but it is not even the recruitment system. You see, the people that are joining the security sector now are not necessarily the people that are really interested, in contributing in that aspect. It's because they don't have other options or alternatives. And that is why you even have problem in managing some of them when they are in service. Take, for instance, you get calls here and there simply because somebody has been deployed to Operation Hadinkai or Wild Stroke or Hadirin Jaji and all the rest of them. He's the only child in what he has never for once thought of, the difficulties associated with wearing the uniform. He or she is only thinking of the privileges. Now they said, okay, go to Malam Patoria and you start saying one light a lie. So these are the issues. So we have to interrogate the value system. And I can tell you, we have all it takes to deal with security problems of this country.
All right, thank you so much.
All we need to do is to
harness
holistic approach to it.
Okay.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you for coming on Daybreak this morning and sharing your perspectives with us. We really
hope to
appreciate it.
calling you next time.
Thank you so much, and I wish you a happy new year and congratulations for the new studio. Anyway.
Thank you so much.